When you think about a doe, meaning a female deer, what words come to mind? For some, you might think gentle, calm, maybe serene. Others might even think fierce or intense because the deer can be everything, right? But generally speaking, we often think of those calmer words to describe a deer. And I found for myself that when I want to bring that presence of mind of calmness, gentleness, softness to my interactions with the natural world, like if I've got a lot going on in my mind, I'll do my best to embody the deer or the doe. So I think of her, I think of like, who would she be right now? What would she be doing? How would she see the world? So today, during the Mindful Bird Sit, we're going to get an opportunity to embody the doe. So if you'd like to try that out, then stick around. Hey there, welcome to the Mindful Bird Sit. If you're new here, my name is Kristi, and I help people connect deeply to birds and nature while boosting their skills, elevating their confidence, and helping them to fall more in love with life. If that's something that you'd like to do, please consider subscribing and sticking around. You can also check out any number of my online courses like Identify Any Bird Anywhere. All right, let's get started. But today I wanted to bring to you the idea of the deer and the doe. So I had this beautiful, huge doe walk through my yard a couple weeks ago, and I was just so struck by her stillness, her grace. Actually, I was going to ask you guys, like, what are some words when you think of a doe? What are some words that come to mind to describe a doe or a deer?
Watchful,
Watchful, yeah. Uh-huh, that's a great one. Yep. What else? What words come?
elegant,
Elegant, yeah. Elegant, watchful, like
peaceful,
peaceful. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh,
ballet, on ponte on your
yeah. 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 Which kind of plays in with that grace or that elegance too, like a ballet dancer is very elegant.
Cautious.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. Cautious. Maybe that watchful, that word in there, like with watchful, cautious. Yeah. So those are great words. So yeah, so I was thinking of the deer and oftentimes the words that come to my mind, they can be all that. They can also be fierce, Like deer can be really intense and and protective and especially a mama deer, And so but oftentimes, the majority of the time, I feel like she's peaceful, she's calm, she's watchful, she's graceful, she's elegant. And it's an energy or a way of being, I guess you could say, that when I find if my mind is busy, like I'm thinking about a lot of things and I really want to calm down, especially quickly, if there's something I want to see or be close to, like if there's something in nature that I really want to approach and I want to do it, I'm like, oh, it's right there. I don't have like, 5 minutes to like, kind of get myself into a clear state. What I'll do is I'll think about the deer and I'll bring her into my mind. So I'll bring the deer into my presence of mind. Um, Years ago, I was studying herbalism, and it was actually the very first, I guess, couple weeks maybe even of studying it. And we were taught about the plant nettle. I'm sure a lot of you have experience with nettle, right? Stinging nettle. And I was just super enamored by nettle because they let us try an infusion of nettle and told us about the benefits and all the different minerals and vitamins that are in nettle. And I was like, this plant sounds magic. And I was living in Washington State at the time, and it was readily available. And I remember walking through my yard one day and I found this whole patch of it and I was just like, I have nettle in my own yard. This is amazing. And so like I went back inside and I grabbed like a little basket or something to collect it with. And so I'm just sitting there and I was just like so in the zone. I was so in the zone with the nettle and just being in love with it and harvesting it. And I was just so excited. Um, it wasn't even excited. It was just more like peaceful. I was harvesting the nettle and I was just being very present with it. Anyway, what happened all of a sudden was I turned to my left. I think I saw it caught like a motion out of the corner of my eye. And I looked over to my left, and there was a deer and her fawn that were just feeding in this. It's like a little like a little paddock that I was in. That was like this overgrown paddock, and they had just come in and they were just feeding like within 6 feet of me. I mean, they were so close, and we were all just in the zone. Like they were feeding, I was feeding. I was like gathering really slowly and like being mindful of the plants. And it wasn't until I kind of was like, whoa, there's a deer there, and they were like, whoa, there's a human there. We all just like realized each other, like recognized each other, and we're like, kind of our heads got involved, and then they kind of scurried off, and I just got very excited. But um, what I realized is that I was being the deer while I was doing that, and by doing that, I blended in. Like I wasn't hidden from view; they could see me visibly, but my energy was hidden from view. My energy was blending into everything around me. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take on the energy of the deer or the doe, and yeah, just see what arises for you in doing so. Okay. All right. So take a moment to get yourself into a nice, comfortable position. Today we'll be using ears and eyes. So wherever you want to look or listen. Um, and yeah, I think today would be a nice open eye practice day, unless you're just feeling like you really just want to have your eyes closed. That would be totally fine too. Um, so we'll begin first with our eyes closed, however. So if you're feeling like you're in a safe, comfortable place, go ahead and close your eyes and just notice your breath, notice your posture, notice yourself. Is your breath rhythmic and steady? Is it maybe a little excited, anticipatory? Is it full and deep, or is it maybe a bit more shallow? And we'll intentionally bring our attention to our breath now by taking a nice deep inhale, filling up your belly, your lungs, and then exhaling. And as you're exhaling, you're going to squeeze your belly in, squeeze your chest, and just squeeze it all out. And then allow your belly to fill. Inhale deeply, then your chest expands fully. And as you get to the top of your breath, just hold it for a moment and then let it go. And let it go completely. And go ahead and do that one more time. Squeeze all the air out. And then slowly start to fill with your belly first, and then rising up into your chest, your ribs expanding, fully, fully, fully expanding. And then hold your breath at the top. And then let it all go. Good work. And now you can fall back into a nice, gentle, rhythmic breathing or breath. And if your posture was not how you would like it to be, you can adjust your posture, sitting up tall, rolling your shoulders back a little bit so your chest is expanded instead of rounded and protected. If you're feeling safe, you can stretch your chest open. Again, imagining that female deer just proud, confident. And sinking your awareness deeper into your body now, going down into your belly and becoming present to your belly button area, the area right below your belly button. Some say this is one of the core energy centers of our body. Others believe that our gut is our other brain. So just bringing your awareness to your belly right now. Noticing if it's tight or open and expanded. Good work. And then you can move your attention down to your toes, the tips of your toes, each one of them. Give some attention to each toe, your pinky toe, and then all the other ones up to your big toe. You can give them a little wiggle. And then slowly start to work your way back up your body, stopping and pausing for a breath at each joint. So being really mindful of where are the major important joints in our body, right? So we've got the knuckles of our toes, our ankles, and then slowly working up to all the joints and pausing for a moment for a breath with each one, sending some good vibes, sending a breath, some clear energy into that area of your body right now. And no rush if you're not here yet, but when you get to your neck, just remember your neck. Remember your neck is one of the joints of your body. That space right before your skull, the intersection there between that part of your body and the rest of your body. And now, if you have made it all the way to the top of your body after going through all your joints, now just take a deep breath and imagine that that breath is moving into all those joints, moving in and out together in unison, including your spine in this with all the little spaces in between your vertebrae. And now we're going to stay in this for just another moment with your eyes closed. And what I want you to do is imagine that there is a deer, there's a doe, and she's looking at you right now. She's not looking at you as a human, and she's not a deer, but she is a deer. It's more an energy exchange. She's looking at you as an entity. And just notice her gaze and just feel the way that she looks upon you. How would that doe look upon you right now? And this isn't a judgment. Just remove all judgment. There's nothing like that here. Just allow her gaze, her unique, calm, elegant, graceful, beautiful, connected, grounded gaze to fall upon you right now. And then allow that exchange. You can look back at her, noticing the parts of her that come to your awareness, that you feel most drawn to, most connected to. And now invite her in. Invite her to share her perspective, her eyes, her ears, her feeling, her felt sense of the world. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes, and now you're going to see the world through her eyes. So just letting go of yourself, your persona, your name, who you think you are, your role in life, and just allow yourself to take on the presence of the deer right now. Allow yourself to have the soft eyes of the doe as you look upon the world. Noticing where your eyes are drawn, what you're curious about and interested in exploring. And now bringing your attention, keep them still on your soft gaze. But now you can bring your attention to your ears, your big, beautiful deer ears, listening to the world around you, noticing what sounds you're curious about, what sounds bring you peace and continued calmness, and what sounds make you maybe a bit more alert, maybe cautious or interested. And so we're going to spend the next handful of minutes allowing ourselves to be in this state of mind of the deer or the doe, allowing our eyes to see through her eyes. How does she see the world? Allowing your body to feel the way that she may feel the world. work, everybody. So now you can just stay in that state if you like, if you're enjoying this practice. And then also to add to it, you can choose to take one of your hands and sort of cup it slightly and then turn it away. So this is like the front of my hand. I'm going to turn it toward the back, and then I'm going to put it up to my ear so that it's basically instead of cupping them this way, where you're like trying to listen in front of you, you're going to take at least one of your hands and cup it behind you. You know how the deer ears can do that? How they can turn sort of forward and backward? So just take one of your hands and face it backwards. So the front ear can still hear forward. You can even do both if you want, like face one forward and one backwards if you'd like, or just face one backwards and just listen to the world. You can turn a little bit and even just stand still and just notice what you're hearing when one hand is cupped backwards. And if you want, you can cup one forward as well, or just choose one hand. And you can do that for a few minutes until you're complete with that, and then you can go back to just watching and observing. All right, lovely, good work. So take the next moment or two to offer gratitude or a blessing to anything, anyone that you connected with today, and in particular, that entity or energy of the deer. So, whichever doe you were most connected with today, offer a gratitude or a blessing to her as well. If you'd like, it's just an invitation to do so. All right, lovely. So, if anyone needs to head out, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing this space and this practice with us today. Otherwise, you can stick around for our chat and see what comes about, what people have to share. All right, who would like to start us off today? Who would like to share their experience? Julia, yeah, go for it.
Well, I've been away and actually have not been here in my backyard since I got home late Sunday night. Weather was not inviting. Well, anyway, and so I'm seeing it with new eyes. You know how you're away and things look different when you come home. But also, especially with this practice, I I realize that my space around me, especially in this backyard, is more like a sanctuary space. And there are sounds in the distance. I mean, there's the garbage truck, it's garbage day, in the distance, and there's some traffic, not as loud as usual, actually. But right here, I would say there's nothing going on, but there's a lot going on there, the hummingbirds and the butterflies, and it's all natural. And um, you know how sometimes people speak of feeling the energy of this or that, and I'm able to feel the energy of this space actually is different today. So thank you. It fit for me just very well.
Awesome. That's beautiful, Julia. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And welcome back. Awesome. Who else would like to share? Della, you have, yeah.
Sure, sure. Um, well, that was interesting. I was really getting into being the deer, and at first I started off with being cautious and protective of a fawn and that, and then I was listening for the sounds of other animals and listening for the sounds of the chickadee and the titmouse, and knowing that in their language that they were either in a steady state or whether they were in alarming, and trusting the other animals around me and the other birds around me to alarm and if there was a problem. And then taking note that the fawn was losing its spots and that it would soon be on its own, and noticing and maybe accepting that I, the deer, had had a long life, and appreciating that long life that she had had.
Wow, Della, that's really deep and rich. Hmm, it's really beautiful. Yeah, I noticed similar but different for myself. I was surprised that it was almost an assumption that there were others with me. Whether it was a fawn or like other females were with me. They're always like behind me. I guess I was the leader or whatever, but they were with me, and I realized that in my own life, I really do value my alone time. I feel like I can be very much the cat, like more of like the mountain lion or bobcat who's just like likes my own space and whatever. But then there's that part of me that also really values and appreciates having the others around me, and there is a sense of safe when I imagined them there. um, I was noticing that like the dappled light in the forest, which is kind of where I saw her walk into, and and I was like, oh, it'd be a nice place for a rest for us. It was my first thought, like that we can go in there and rest. And I was like, oh, there's others, and I'm like, of course there's others. They're mostly often like different from like some birds that we were talking about. The deer are quite often, females anyway, are quite often, even the males will group up together. Um, but how much more calm I felt knowing that they were there. Not just their presence, but like they were listening, they were being observant as well. It wasn't just all up to me. Whereas I think, like, as sort of like the mountain lion, it's just like all up to her to do everything, to be attentive to everything and pay attention to everything. And with the deer, it's like a group effort, like everyone's listening, everyone's watching, everyone's being attentive. And so there's a different kind of peacefulness that I think that they can have, like very alert. Of course, there was that. I was always aware, curious of certain sounds and certain sights. Like as the light would change, there'd be, I could see like some of the spider webs, glistening. And I just would get like aware or curious about those, but very calm because everyone else was there with me listening, kind of like what you were saying, Della, like with the trusting the chickadees and like that trust. There was a trust for what was around us to also communicate if we needed to be on like more alert. And yeah, it was just a beautiful thought to, whether it's just like the mama and her doe or does, or young ones, I mean fawns, or whether it's like the females and all of the other females, with them together. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, thank you. Who else would like to share? Yeah, Anne.
I kind of went with Della's um, thought of paying attention to the nature around you. I'm watching turkey vultures across the farm field at the edge of the woods, and I know there's something because they're down in the shadows, and the deer sees them too and knows that they're so. I guess I was never at rest. I was so alert because of the things that were going on around me. I was thinking, how am I going to get across these farm fields to the edge of the woods? And then I noticed the moths. Well, what are they eating? Because they kind of might lay eggs and be on flowers, and I would like to eat those too. And that's like, what are the turkey vultures eating? You know, was that Uncle Frank, who got old, and the coyotes got him last night? Was it Martha and that one twin that had a bad leg? And then I'm telling myself, no, 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 it's just a possum. It's probably a raccoon. That's more likely than a friend. So I was on alert, and I was having to, where am I going to go to eat next? I didn't feel safe in this one little spot, you know. So I was
Yeah,
looking to move. I wanted to
yeah.
move away from here.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I could feel that's interesting because like maybe just because I'm feeling a little tired, like my deer was looking to rest and just be still, whereas it feels like you were on the move. You were like, and that's a different kind of being, when the deer are on the move, I feel like they're a different kind of alert. Yeah, which you were really, really present to. Mm-hmm.
But then I had to make up to get away from morbidness. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that's the human part of me. So that
Right.
I'm good I have that.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one other piece I forgot to share with mine, kind of related to what you're saying. The My landlord is a builder, and so not all builders are like this, but he's got a bunch of stuff, in the yard here, and there's like turned over wheelbarrows and wood, that was like used for something else, and there's just stuff, in different parts of the yard. It's generally a clean place, but there's definitely some stuff, like piles of things, and and I could see this wheelbarrow the whole time, and I just imagined the deer, like that's like right about where she was going to walk in the forest, but she had no judgment of that wheelbarrow. Like when I look at it, I'm just like, oh, I wish it was cleaned up. But she just like, it's kind of like for the deer, like their world is always changing. Like a tree might fall or a flower might grow or this thing might happen in a house, whatever. Like their world is always changing, and I don't know if this is true, but my experience of it was like that she didn't have any judgment about the wheelbarrow being there. She just stepped over it, or stepped around it. It's just like, oh, there's something here, I'm going to move around it. It wasn't like, kind of like an Arabian horse who's like, like scared of everything, like all of a sudden this thing's here. Oh my God, the deer is just, I think, a much more like accepting of just what's there and so present in the moment, that they're just like, okay, there's this thing here. Now I have to like choose like which way I want to go around it or over it or maybe avoid it completely, and yeah, I was just another, I was appreciative of that for myself because sometimes when I look out on that wheelbarrow, I'm like, maybe I should just go pick it and clean it up and put it behind the house or something like that, so I don't have to look at it. Yeah, so I was grateful for her this morning. Sweet. Susie, did you have something? Yeah, go for it.
So first I tried to feel my body in as a deer, which took me a little while to feel. Like I had fur on my all over my body, and then I tried to feel the movement of walking like a deer in the grass, and then I had my like Della. There was a baby. I had a fawn kind of behind me to my right, and I kept looking around to make sure nothing was going to harm my baby. And then I became aware of other, like you, Kristi, there were other deer around me. And then I had this flash of watching Bambi and how they used to talk. They would talk to each other, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how can I communicate with my dear friend, dear DEER friends and companions? And so then I was thinking, oh, they must have some kind of language, like like birds do, uh, snorting or anyway. And how do they communicate what to eat and when to use their ears to like horses do. They'll put their ears back like this to tell you that they're they don't like that. So I'm wondering, probably tears off. I could do that too. Anyway, I just kept going. Um, and I felt a lot of comfort being a deer and with my other dear friends. And that was my experience.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
wonderful. I'll
Oh,
do that some more.
good, Susie. I'm so happy. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's you made me think about I've talked before about the guy who did the movie My Life as a Turkey. And I think I don't know if it's the same guy, but it's a very similar movie and it's about deer. I don't remember the name of the movie, but they did this movie where this guy spent like, I don't know if it was a full year like they did with the turkey, but they spent a long time with this herd of deer, moving with them and getting to know them and sort of be I don't know if they ever got to be a part of it like the guy did with the turkey, but because they were always around it, the deer really had accepted them as part of the herd. So they were no longer like startled by this man. And I won't give it away, but there is one scene where he talks about noticing the moment. Like it had happened so many times, but he finally noticed the moment of like who told everybody else where they were going to go and how that decision was made. And it's quite fascinating to, and this was a mixed herd. It was male and female. It might have even been elk, but I'm pretty sure it was deer. Anyway, it was some ungulates. And yeah, and what comes to mind is like all the sign language that they use, with their body language. Um, in terms of community, I know they do have like, they will vocalize, but and I guess I've never been, other than that time with that mama and her young one, I've never been sort of close enough to listen to like a herd to see if they actually are vocalizing with each other, more than just like that, like with an elk or something where it's like the mating calls. Um, but maybe they have those little calls like, like jays do, how jays have their like little whisper kind of talk to each other, like that you only can hear when you're in that intimate space with them. So maybe deer have that too. I don't know. That's just beautiful, beautiful ideas to think about, Susie. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your experience with that. Anyone else want to share their experience from yeah, Gabrielle, please. Hi.
So I couldn't find my regular glasses coming into this meeting. And so I'm wearing my reading glasses, which is very different than my regular glasses. So I thought, okay, these are my deer eyes. This is how the deer sees it. And it was really interesting when the deer's here where I'm sitting, and it's looking out this way where all the trees are, and it's still, it's very, very still. And the deer was just so okay with the stillness. You know how they can be so still? And so there was this beautiful kind of communing with the stillness. But then behind the deer, behind me, there's cars coming by. And that's when I, the deer, heard the cars, I got kind of skittish because it was like danger and it was man-made. And um, it was just beautiful the way that it went in and out from the stillness to the danger. Um, and I think there was some projection going on of where I'm at right now because I'm having a really hard time with the earthly things. I got hacked into my all my finances, and I think I really need the stillness. So it was an interesting little projection of my own stuff on the deer or the deer stuff on me. I don't know.
Yeah, 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 the both, right? There's like caution and then the stillness, and the
Yeah,
caution and the stillness, and it
yeah.
can be both. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful, Gabrielle. Thank you. Thank you. It actually reminds Susie, I've meant to say that I was grateful, and I didn't think about doing this with all of you, but I'm really glad that you did. How you really took yourself into the body of the deer, like how you gave yourself the fur, and I forget all the other bits and pieces of the deer that you took, the four legs, and what would it be like to move as a deer. And I think that's really important, when we're out there. And this is a practice that you can take with you into the, like I said, this is what I use if I want to really quickly, quiet my mind. I'll just ask myself, like, if I was a doe right now, what would I be doing? And I just sort of get curious about a plant or something. I might like start to graze. And but I think that's probably even more helpful to like imagine myself with fur, and like what would it feel like to have the wind like touch my fur, and like maybe a fly land on my back, or really really getting into the body of the deer can help you more quickly get into that experience, and to quiet your mind and to get right there with her. So I meant to say that I was really grateful that you brought that up, that you added that to your practice. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, Julia.
Well, a couple more things. I really enjoyed this cupping of the ears and really noticed that. And of course the house is behind me, so it's really quiet. But I thought how useful that is for animals in nature to be able to hear behind them. I was just imagining that as a deer, I was in front of this a rock cliff or something, where I knew that behind me was going to be safe, and and my attention could go, in the front, and so on. And also I thought animals, maybe largely, observe without judgment. You know, they get information and they can discern, is this good? Is this bad? Should I stay away from this? This is safe, whatever, you know, discernment like that. But but I'm guessing that animals are kind of free of the judgment about the information they take in.
Like
Yes.
there's no meaning about it. It's just sort of like there's a wheelbarrow there. It doesn't mean like, oh man, I wish that wasn't there. Like that's a mess. It looks dirty. It's like, there's none of that. It's just there's a wheelbarrow there. Like it's more of like, taking like stock of what's around versus like the meaning that we put on it all. I think, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
probably, except for in Bambi, the hunters.
Right,
Well,
right.
again, that's information, that's danger.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting to study animals' brains and see where, if judgment comes in there.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't know that we could get them on the table with the electrodes and so.
Yeah.
It's,
And I think of like, you know, when I've had a dog before, I feel like domestic animals are probably different because they spend so much time with us that I have a feeling that some domestic animals probably have some judgment. Like certain cats, you know, they probably have some judgment about things, you know? Like that person that comes over they just don't like, they're just like, meh. I don't know.
well,
Maybe wild animals do too, but
that's why dogs are capable of unconditional love. So that, yeah.
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
get me started on cats.
Yeah,
Just cat
right.
lovers, but as long as they're inside your house.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right, anyone else? There's a few other people who did you guys want to anyone want to share? Yeah, you don't have to, but go for it, Amory, please.
Well, it's so dry right now.
Mm,
So I was just thinking about, how, well, when I'm trying to hike and walk quietly and not disturb, how nice it would be maybe to have that slimmer hoof that could go in between the leaves and not make the branch crack or the pine cone crunch, so that you could be more, stealthy and protected and looking around through the yard. And then where do they discern is something that is a more tender? What would I eat? um do I need to eat something, that is drier out there because that's what we have, or did I find something new that it had just sprouted? Usually it's my flowers, but anyway, if they get close enough. I have enjoyed thinking about the fawns too, because just observing, they definitely don't have a lot of preconceived notions, especially when they do encounter um, us, or when I'm out in the woods. So they're very curious. What is this new animal? I don't recognize this thing. And then I get worried. Should I make it cautious of me for its protection? So I'm thinking about this. Should I be mama and say, stomp my foot, say, no, get back over here, a little bit? Because yeah, I observed that this weekend, the fawn was coming closer to me. So as I'm thinking about that, I was like, yeah, I can remember calling my own kids in, if they wandered too far, get back over here. If they're in the store or something like that, that I would do that, keep them a little closer, but also letting them explore more. So more distance, they're in my sight, but they're a little farther away because they need to learn. And then if I think they've gone too far, or I've noticed something they didn't, that I then might alarm so that we could go off and deep into my woods. So that we'd hide because the dog just came out of the door or whatever, something like that. So they're very interesting, and they do definitely listen to all of the birds and the other animals for their alarms as well. And it's there's so many that live close to us now, um, that they really have had to pay attention to things that they might not normally have to. If they were in the woods, there would be different dangers um, for them. So I was reflecting on that while I was trying to figure out, this would be hard to navigate, where I'm going to eat, going across the road to the next place. Like Anne was thinking, yeah, am I going to get, hit by a car if I don't go fast enough? If I go across, will my fawn make it? So anyway, worries about stuff like that. And then peaceful time too, because it was quiet. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. There's a lot going on over there. Yeah, and because you have that personal relationship with the deer in your yard, you know, so it's another layer for you. Yeah, with that depth of connection and being aware of what they're aware of, you know, because I know you watch them and you're attentive to them and you pick up on the sounds that they might pick up on. It's like, oh yeah, they have to be attentive to that chainsaw that's going off or whatever, like the guy that just started the tractor or the dog that came out of the house, things that you're right, like in the woods, they might not have to be attentive to those things. Yeah, there's a really cool story I'll share really quick before we go. His name was Merv Wilkinson, and I never got to meet him in person, but the Wilderness Awareness School folks, someone found him at one point. I don't know how, and I think he was from Canada. And they used to take the students up there for a couple days to like spend time with Merv. And Merv was this guy who was a man that had spent, I think, like 40 or more years on the same piece of property. And and he had this just Zen relationship with his land and the animals of his land. And they called it Nirvana, like he could get to a state of Nirvana. Um, and that was they had this moment where they realized that I don't know if they got to see this or he told them the story, but he would selectively harvest and cut the trees in his forest. So it wasn't like clear cut or anything like that. He would just be like, okay, that tree this year is going to be the one that I'm going to take for whatever, making something I need, or maybe it needs to come down, whatever it was. But he would selectively harvest the trees in his forest, take a handful of them every year, and he was out there, and I guess this was happening often, like where he would chainsaw the tree down, like, and if anyone's ever been around a chainsaw, they can be very loud. Like, "Rah!" And it's just like, he wants some kind of ear protection on. But he would be chainsawing the tree, and then as soon as it would come down, the deer would come out of the forest and just start, and he's still like, cutting it up as it's on the ground, and they would just come and like feed on the tree, like right next to him. He had become a part of the forest with them, and he had his own way of being really zen, even though he's chainsawing a tree, doing something that's just like loud and noisy. And because I often think about that, Anne-Marie, of just like, oh, I just stepped on a branch and I'm making all this noise. And then I think of Merv, and I'm just like, Merv was chainsawing a tree down and he still had the deer come up to him. So I think there's something more than simply just the noise that the animals pick up on. And yeah, so I'll leave you guys with that. And I hope you all have a really beautiful week. Do your best to embody the dough as you move through your week and just see what evolves, see what emerges for you. And happy Labor Day. I hope you have some restfulness today in your day, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. All right, talk to you soon.